Hi, everybody. Welcome. Couple of questions. First of all, who attended my talk last Thursday? 1, 2, 3. Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a rerun for you. So it's like you really learn it inside out now. So I'll try to put a little bit of a different spin on it if I can. And I know that, Ricardo's heard me talk about this before in Stockholm when we did a really fun presentation as part of the East End DC network research project, which is actually part funding, or has part funded this research project that I'm talking about today. Next question I was going to ask is, how many of you would consider yourself to be sort of either occasional or frequent or sometimes runners in any way? Anybody going to do a fair amount of running? Ryan was here. He's gone. Mark, I know you're a runner. Well, okay, soon enough.
Cycling.
Close enough. Cycling, well, we could go there. My daughter, I know she's attending Junior Park Run tomorrow morning, right? Yeah, good. So she's up and coming. Because this talk does concern running, I know that it's described as music and sport, but really specifically it concerns running. It's a research project that in part originated from my own interest and history as a runner. Basically, when I was in high school, so up until about the age of 18, I did a lot of running. I was sort of on the track and field team. It came quite naturally to me, so I didn't have to train for it, so all the better. I didn't have to invest a lot of time or energy in it. So I did a lot of running, but as soon as I left high school into university, I just lost all interest in all physical activity whatsoever. So for about the next 20 years, up and through my 20s, through to the end of my 30s, I would not have considered myself to be active, to have an active lifestyle. And definitely not sort of in any kind of athletic sense, for sure. Although I did occasionally do cycling and, more for commuting purposes, and that, and a lot of hiking and walking. But when I turned 40, maybe that was part of my midlife crisis. Is that what 40 is, midlife now? I don't know. It seems quite young now to me. It was actually when I was in Basel, Switzerland, doing a research residency for about a month in the summer. And I saw the Basel Marathon being run, and something about it, just watching the people doing it, and I was just deeply inspired by seeing all the participants of all walks of life, of all kinds of abilities. I thought, I want to get back into my running, and I just basically did it, and I've been hooked ever since. So for the last 13 years, I've been a really quite avid runner. Running is a big part of my life. I sort of describe myself as a runner, as a composer, amongst other things, family man. And it came to me about a couple of years ago that I ought to maybe explore this in my own research, is to look at, to incorporate my running and my interest in running into my musical research. So there has been a lot of previous research done, of course, relating to the different relationships and impacts of music and sound on various kinds of athletic performance, different sport, but especially running. There's been a lot of work on that. And a lot of that is actually centered on the work of my colleague at Brunel University London, Kostas Karagiorgis, who's sort of one of the leading, I would say, experts, very well published, on looking at these different relationships. And they're looking at it in a very sort of, let's say they're looking at music that is more commercial, sort of pop music, different forms of popular commercial music, and how hearing that while running, while training, while recovering from training, before races and preparation, how that can help to motivate and distract and aid recovery and aid athletic performance, just give perhaps athletes a certain edge while they're training. One of the problems, of course, for more serious elite runners is that you're not allowed to listen to running in races. Okay, so you can't be running around in the Olympics with headphones in your ears. It's not allowed. It's illegal to do that. And in fact, a lot of the mass participation running events that all runners, amateurs, including myself, can run in, they ban headphones because it's unsafe. It can be unsafe to be screening your hearing and making you less aware of other runners around you, and it makes it less safe, basically, for people if you have less of an awareness. So that, in a way, kind of creates some interesting Not necessarily a problem, but it's something I need to think about a lot with regards to this project, because this project will require people to wear headphones of some shape or form. But there are ways around that. There's ways to do that a little bit more safely. So yes, anyways, a lot of pre-existing research on examining the effects of listening to music on running experience, etc. There's been a lot of development of apps by some of the running shoe manufacturers, other sort of fitness companies, Nike, other companies I can't remember, that have created apps that will adjust the tempo of pre-existing music to your running speed, and also sort of others more basic things that will select from playlists of music different tracks depending upon their tempo. Okay, so if you're planning to go out for a certain run, then you'll tell your app what speed you're planning to run, and then it will sort of automatically configure a playlist for you. But that's sort of assuming that you're using all of this pre-existing commercial type of music. That's not something that I'm particularly that interested in. Of course, as a composer myself of original music, I hope, and especially of electroacoustic music. So my approach in this current research is to a couple of different things. One is actually, rather than looking at the effects and harnessing music on running, it's to invert that relationship and to see how can I use running, the act of running, and the sort of the different physiological data, parameters that can be generated through running. How can I use that to create music, real-time music, on the fly, original music? And then how can this be explored in terms of the broader two-way relationships between music influencing running performance and then the actual act of running influencing the creation of music in real time. And that gave birth to this project, Soundrunner. Okay, so there's sounds that are being generated in real time, sounds that are being configured and sequenced in real time, music, form, different properties that are being adjusted in real time depending upon a particular running session or experience. That's kind of the bigger aims, let's say, of this project. So the project involves myself, composer of electroacoustic music, collaborating with a sports scientist or exercise scientist, sports psychologist, Kostas Kyrgiorgis at Brunel. It's an art and science type of collaboration, and this has been really challenging for me, really interesting, really challenging my own, let's say, methodologies and routines of creating work and working in the studio, because there's two priorities here at play in parallel. I would say oftentimes, sometimes competing with each other, the scientific ones and the artistic ones. But this art and science confluence is really one of the things at the heart of this project. I would say another sort of overriding or underlying aim for this project is to promote health and well-being in different ways. Okay, to motivate people to move, to motivate people to become more active, to exercise, and there's different ways that I'm hoping that we can do that. And it is to sort of involves, at least for now, it's primarily aimed at runners. This is really being developed for running, the running community, wide constituency of runners, whether it be complete beginners, people that have not run at all, people that are walkers, active walkers, amateur runners, but also potentially elite runners as well, people that are sort of more at the cutting edge. I think the research itself could probably be applicable to different sorts of sports and activity, but there may be sort of practical reasons why it is more relevant to running than other sports. Another thing that's for me that I think is interesting about this project is I really noticed once I started to think about this and to look into it, is there hasn't been a lot of work done by people in, especially composers and especially electroacoustic composers, working with the realm of sport and athletics. And it's almost like there are these two very distant worlds that do not overlap that much. And I'm curious as to why that is. You can think of pieces that have been composed that address running or that address sport in some way. I think of Kraftwerk and the Tour de France and other sort of more popular tracks that are, what is it, every World Cup, isn't there an England song about World Cup ambitions or something. I remember New Order had one. That's the last one I remember. But I guess most countries probably have their theme songs about sporting events and that kind of thing. Camden Reeves pointed out to me that Eric Satie, of course, composed Gymnopédies, which I suppose is concerned with athletics in some way, but in kind of a very programmatic, narrative, impressionistic type way. But as far, there hasn't been a lot of really deep electroacoustic music, sound work that is looking at different forms of athletics and sport. And so that, to me, is quite interesting to be working in this area, to kind of be bringing these two things together. I believe it's quite unique. I hope so, anyways. So, give you a little taste of what that pilot study was like. We made a documentary film. I think the sound should be okay. It's just a 2-minute little kind of show reel. I'll be repeating a lot of what I just said. But which one? Oh, okay.
About 2 years ago, when I was thinking about my next research project, I sort of had one of those epiphany moments where I thought, yeah, I could do something where I bring together these two passions of mine, running and music, and a research project. Wow, like that would be really exciting. It'd be something really different for me to do as a researcher. The project Soundrunner, and it's a collaboration between arts and science. I wanted to create an experience for runners whereby through the act of running they create unique sounds and music that adapts to their running performance. It enables them to become composers through their running. So through this pilot study, we're developing some of the underlying technology, our working methodologies. It involves approximately 12 participants. It really is an arts-led project, but nonetheless it has this kind of scientific grounding. I work with a sport psychologist named Professor Kostas Karagiorgis, who is one of the leading experts in studying relationships between music and sport. We're gathering both psychological data and we're also gathering artistic outcomes through recordings of interviews, asking the participants to reflect upon their own running experience and their perspectives on running and sound. The fundamental thing is, if you're not running, there's no sound and there's no music. So the sound and the music is only going to be created through the act of running. And depending upon how you're running and maybe whether you're achieving certain targets that you've set for yourself in terms of training or attaining a certain distance on a run or a certain duration, then there will be unique sonic and musical outcomes. I'm planning to compose a musical work, a documentary, reflective style work that incorporates elements of spoken word from the participants, elements of sound and music that the system that we're developing for the test creates. Soundrunner is being developed for a wide range of potential users, from people that are just starting to run to people that are more advanced. Really, the ultimate aim is for it to enhance the running experience, to maybe help people get motivated to run. I want to create something where it's purely a sonic experience.
That video was shot by Kieran Hansen. Yeah, and the piece I'm playing tonight is not directly related to that research project. It's nothing to do with the treadmill or the use of the psychological data, but it is an audiovisual piece that is concerned with running. So that'll be on play. Any questions?
Thank you. How do you manage to keep away from the temptation of the sort of sports?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and I don't think I can.
Yeah.
Because the thing I have to ask myself, for somebody that, for the average person or whoever it is going to be running and might be using the system, is what kind of music do they want to listen to? So style. But I think what I will do is that the app itself will probably have different stylistic modes, so that you could probably choose between something that is more soundscape, something that's more experimental, and then something that's more like 4 on the floor. Because I think people want to run to a beat. And in the interviews that I did so far, I would say most of those people, some people don't like running with music at all, which is fine. You know, a lot of times when I'm running, I don't want to be listening to anything. But mostly they wanted to listen to techno. So it's interesting for me because I'm not a techno music composer, but you know,
Isn't that an area you thought of looking into? Have you not thought about looking into the sort of area of techno and how it affects movement and dance culture and things like that?
Yeah.
Or in gyms, because most...
Yeah, well, it's already been done. Already been done, that research, I think. But, you know, for me, just because of the nature of what I'm interested in, I don't want to compose, I don't want to create an app that does commercial music. I want it to be slightly, you know, on the edge of that a little bit more. But, you know, in the fact that it will be very dynamic and responsive to running, it will be more, you know, it will in effect sort of be slightly experimental anyways, but a bit early to say.
Because there's a lot of sort of like Detroit techno music, it's quite muscular.
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
Like it's quite,
Yeah.
you know, there's a strength of
Yeah.
weight in the sound.
But it's hard, I can't predict what people might want to listen to while they're running. That's the thing. That's what's tricky. That's why I think a lot of it is going to be dependent upon what the ultimate aims are in terms of what are we trying to achieve here. Are we trying to achieve really a boost to performance? I'm not really that interested in that. I want it to be something that's just going to be more motivational and more inspiring, kind of to get active in a way. So it's not about, oh, we're going to get people to go that extra 1.1% faster to win the Olympic gold. You know, I'm not that interested in that. It's more about a kind of a more holistic, feel-good factor. So, yeah, to be determined, I think. Yeah, Chris.
You briefly mentioned this earlier, but if this was released on a commercial level, do you think there would be a lot of like safety hoops you have to jump through? A lot of features that will be introduced?
Probably. Yeah.
Before people can use it?
Probably, yeah. I mean, I'm not, again, this isn't like I'm not doing the research purely for commercial goals. I think if it works well, I think it could be commercialized, so, you know. So, yeah, that'd be great if we could do that. But yeah, and the thing going back to the headphones and the safety of using headphones in general, and especially on runnings, on races where they're banned, the thing that isn't banned is bone conductive headphones. So that's kind of what, if we did, once we start to trial this in the field as an app, I think I will be doing it we'll be providing the bone conductive headphones so you don't have anything in your ears so you can still hear, for safety's sake. Good?
Thank you.
Thank you.